All right, so we're going to look at piecewise functions here. And we call this a piecewise function for several reasons. One, do you see that you have a function and you have two parts to that function? One of them is a quadratic, which is a parabola, and the other one's linear, which is a line. So we're going to have two different looking pictures all on this same graph. Thus the piece part. The other reason why we call it a piecewise function is we're going to look at these domains, and then you're going to see that we're actually only going to be drawing a piece of this parabola and a piece of this line. It's like a little snapshot. Okay, so I'm going to show you what I mean. Let's just start with x plus 3, that quantity squared. Now we know it's a parabola because we have x squared. We know that there's a horizontal shift to the left 3 because that 3 is inside the parentheses. And we always go in the opposite direction of the sign. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start by drawing and using this graph down here at the bottom just to show you. So then my parabola, normally I would go to the left 3, there's my vertex, and then I would do the 1, 4, 9 method. So I go up 1 and to the left and right 1. Then I go up 4. So remember, I always start back at the vertex again. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'm going to go to the left 2, and I'm going to go to the right 2. Okay, so that would put me, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, left 2, right 2. Now, obviously, I'm a little off my graph here, so I'm just going to use this part of the sketch right now. Okay, now, that's, generally speaking, what our parabola would look like after it's shifted to the left 3. Here's the part that we want to be a little careful about. So we now have this new thing here, which is our domain. And what this is telling us is, take this picture that I just drew. But look, guys, I only want to see the x values that are less than -1. Well, here's -1. So what they're saying is, I don't want to see anything to the right here. So not this whole section, and obviously this continues on and on and on, but I only want to see from here down. But also look at the fact that it's not including -1. So I don't want to see a solid dot here. What I actually want to see is an open circle. So I'm going to repeat that again. When it says x is less than -1, we start at the value that it's referring to, and we only want to see the graph that starts at -1 and anything less than that, which would be in this direction. So I'm going to go up to the top here, and I'm going to draw that graph. So at -1, I see, let me just go back down here, I see that the point is -1, 4. But we're not including 1, so I'm not going to have a solid circle here. I'm actually going to have an open circle at -1, 4. So at -1, 4, I'm putting an open circle like that. Okay? And then I'm just transposing all of these points onto this graph up here. So -2, 1, -3, 0, -4, 1, and -5, 4. Okay? So that's all I'm doing. So -2, 1, -3, 0, -4, 1, and -5, 4. So the part of the piecewise function that they want, based upon this domain right here, is from -1 all the way to the left, but nothing to the right. And again, because we don't have an equal sign, we have an open circle. Okay, so that's why we call it piecewise. It's just part of just a piece of that entire graph. Okay, all right, so now let's look at the second part of the piecewise function, which is this line 1/2 x minus 1. So then what I'm going to do is, well, let me just start by plotting it down in this bottom graph here. I know that the y-intercept is -1, and then I go up 1 to the right 2, up 1 to the right 2, and I'm going to go from that y-intercept, I'm going to go down 1 to the left 2, down 1 to the left 2. So this, generally speaking, is what that line looks like, right? Okay, however, let's go back and let's look at that part of the piecewise function's domain. And this is saying, do me a favor, I only want to see the picture of the line when x is greater than 0. It doesn't include 0, only when x is greater than 0. So, well, here's 0 right here. So they basically want to see from here, keep in mind, just like the last one, I have to have an open circle because we're not including 0. And then anything greater. So I'm just showing this part of the graph, not this part. Okay, so I'm going to start at 0, -1. And I'm going to do this in a different color just so that you can see it better. 0, -1, open circle. And then I go up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2, and so on. So your picture is going to look like that. And that's what a piecewise function looks like. Okay, it's a little tricky. We're going to spend a lot of time doing this, so don't freak out or anything. So this is my answer right here. Okay, so now I'm going to look at number 6 in your notes. So now this piecewise function has 3 parts, 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to start just one at a time. I'm going to just start with that graph -x. And I'm going to do what I did on number 5, and I am going to just put it down on the bottom first. Well, -x, it has no y-intercept, so that means I start at 0, 0. And its slope is -1, so I go up 1 to the left 1, up 1 to the left 1, so on and so on. And I can also do the same thing in this direction, right? So there's the equation, or the graph, I should say, of the equation y equals -x. Okay, now let's look at the fact that they're telling me only draw me the picture from when x is less than 1. Okay, so I'm starting here. Here's where x is 1. And I want the part that's just less than 1, which is all of this, because these x values, look, these x values are getting smaller and smaller. They're getting less than 1, so to speak. Okay, so I'm going to start here. But look, this does not include 1. So I am not going to have a closed circle here at 1, -1. I'm going to have an open circle. So I'm going to put an open circle, and then I know that my slope is -1 over 1, and that's what that graph looks like. Now, just a suggestion to you, and listen, I remember when I did piecewise functions, and guys, that was a really long time ago. I struggled with this. So what I did was something like this, but what you can do, instead of drawing this graph and then this graph, what you can do is use your pencil and draw the whole thing out. And then when you see that it says x is less than 1, just take your eraser and from here erase all of this with your eraser. And then just make that circle an open circle, and then you're done. Okay, and I'll show you what I'm talking about when I get to the next one, okay? All right, so let's go to the next part of the piecewise function. This says 2 when x is 1. Now this is it's actually easy, but it's tricky to kids at first. This is saying f of x. Guys, remember that just means y. So this is saying y is equal to 2 when x is equal to 1. I'm going to repeat that again. Y is equal to 2 when x is equal to 1. Think about that. Y is equal to 2 when x is equal to 1. Doesn't that really just mean when x is 1, y is 2? All they want you to do is graph that point. So I'm just going to graph that point then. 1, 2. There it is right there. I'm going to just, so you can see it. Okay, so just be a little careful. Very simple. No graph, just a dot. Okay, let's look at the last part of the piecewise function. This is saying f of x equals x. In other words, y equals x when x is greater than 1. All right, well, how about we graph that line? Y equals x, again, has a y-intercept of 0. There's no b there. But this time, our slope is positive 1. So up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, and so on. And we can go in this direction as well. Now, if I were you, if you are graphing this, you're just going to now look at the domain, and we're going to erase what they don't want. So let's go over here. This says please only graph, well, it doesn't say please, but please only graph when x is greater than 1. So let's find where x is 1, greater than 1. So they want you to start at this point, open circle, because we're not including 1. Okay, start here and just this part of the graph. That's all they want. So you can erase everything here. I'm going to repeat that again. You can erase everything from this 1 all the way down to the left. Okay? So I'm going to start with plotting 1, 1. Make sure it's an open circle. And then up 1 over 1 to the right. So your picture looks like that. All right, so that is your piecewise function. Now, I know that maybe that's a little bit tricky, but please just remember little things like if you don't have an equal to sign, you should have an open circle. Guys, if you do have an equal sign, then you should have a closed circle here or a closed circle here. And I really encourage you to draw, like, for example, this entire line out, then look at the domain and erase what you need to. That always works, okay? And most kids find that pretty easy to do.